Almost 100 years ago, South Korea's top hunter, Min Si-woo, was mysteriously transported to a monster-infested realm right after he and his disciples defeated the Demon King on Earth. The only way for him to return to Earth is by defeating a dragon-like monster that contains a core inside its body, a core that could help him to teleport back to his home planet. After battling for years, Si-woo finally takes down the monster, which is all thanks to his legendary healing abilities, and acquires the core for himself. As soon as he gulps the stone down, he is ready to sail back to Earth, ready to reunite with his disciples and little brother. In the next moment, he opens his eyes in a lush green forest. He didn't come back alone. There's this mysterious being occupying him, which lives inside his guts, and its name is Frey. He gets back on his feet, looking around, but he doesn't recognize this place at first glance, which of course surprises Frey. I mean, how does this dude not recognize his own home? That's just weird. But Si-woo reminds his companion that Earth's landscapes vary depending on the location. He then focuses on the flow of mana around him, and it feels suspiciously similar to being inside a gate. Checking his own mana, he quickly realizes something frustrating. His stats have been nerfed again. It looks like dimensional travel always seems to have side effects. The first time he was sent from Earth to another world 100 years ago, his stats plummeted. And now, it seems like the same story. Right now, he only has 20% of his former power, which is beyond frustrating. Even Frey is pissed. He wants Si-woo to recover as soon as possible, otherwise he won't be able to use his awesome skills. But Si-woo is just as annoyed because regaining his lost strength is going to take at least a decade. Hearing this, Frey straight up wants to cancel their contract. With Si-woo's current pathetic mana, he's basically useless to him. As they bicker back and forth, the scene cuts to a woman panting heavily as she runs for her life, chased by an orc. She's completely lost track of her teammates and has no clue what to do. More importantly, she has yet to figure out why in the hell there's an orc this early in the dungeon. She suddenly stumbles over her feet and trips. But before the orc can rip her apart, my guy Si-woo rocks that bastard with a single punch. And the best part is that he doesn't even bother looking in the orc's direction. That's how insignificant the threat is to him. Si-woo turns to the girl, wanting her to confirm whether the planet they're currently on is Earth. The already spazzed out girl manages to give a positive response. So he follows up with another question, asking if this is Korea and what year it is. Once again, the girl confirms with a yes and further clarifies that it's the year 2037. The mention of 2037 gets our boy thinking. He remembers that when he got sucked into that other dimension, it was 2027. If he is thinking right, then 100 years in the demon realm was only 10 years on Earth. Si-woo then proceeds to ask the name of the current president. The girl responds, saying it's Choi Dae-soo. This leaves Si-woo absolutely stunned, because as it turns out, he knows this guy. And judging by his expression, he doesn't seem to remember President Choi Dae-soo in good terms. As he mumbles all sorts of weird stuff under his breath, the girl starts wondering if this nutcase is just role-playing as a regressor. Si-woo then turns to her with another question. Since the flow of mana here feels off, he wants to confirm if they are inside a gate. The girl quickly affirms this, and further elaborates that they're inside the tutorial tower. Si-woo has never heard of this tutorial tower concept, so the girl proceeds to spill all the details. The tower appeared a few years ago, acting as a gateway for hunters. If you clear it, you awaken your abilities and gain skills. And the higher your awakening rank, the better your privileges, like getting recruited by the most powerful guilds. So naturally, everyone is rushing to clear the tower as soon as possible. Si-woo clearly remembers that back in his day, the Awakened just got their powers without all this extra crap. From what he understands, all he has to do is clear the tower to get out of here. So he asks her how long that usually takes. The girl explains that on average it takes about 8 weeks. But if you're skilled enough, you can clear it in at least 6 weeks. The current record holder is a second-generation genius hunter, Ryu Ji-won, who cleared it in just 3 weeks. But my guy is not that amazed or surprised. They suddenly sense the presence of something huge nearby, and soon enough, a giant mutated tiger appears, a creature known as the Troll Tiger. While the girl panics at the sight of this terrifying beast, Si-woo is still lost in thought, contemplating the record holder. To him, clearing the tower in 3 weeks isn't impressive at all, it's far too long. But since his own abilities have been nerfed, he's not sure if he can do it any faster either. Meanwhile, the tiger is swishing its tongue around its lips, ready to make a snack out of the duo. Eventually the tiger lunges at them. But Si-woo is still deep in contemplation, thinking about how he'll approach the trial tower. Not wanting his train of thought to be interrupted, he simply punches the giant cat without even moving or looking back at the threat. And that one punch literally breaks the creature's jaw. Finally, Si-woo comes to terms with himself and decides that 5 days should be more than enough to clear the tower. 5 days flow by and the scene then transitions to Min Se-jun, the Empire Guildmaster. His assistant reports that someone just exited the tutorial tower. Hearing this, Sejun realizes that it's only been 8 weeks since the trial started, so clearing the tower in that time isn't bad at all. But then, the assistant reveals something shocking. The person who cleared the tower wasn't on the original entry list. There's no record of their batch, and no record of them entering the tower. And now, this mystery person is causing quite a commotion outside. When the assistant shows Sejun who the person is, his eyes widen in shock, because the face looks oddly familiar. He recognizes him as Hyung, his big brother who had disappeared 10 years ago. Now let's shift back to Siwoo and the girl accompanying him. The lady is absolutely boggled. She has yet to figure out how on earth did this guy clear the tutorial tower in just 5 days. But the way my guy has smashed this last remaining monster, it's clear how. The system promptly announces that the tutorial is complete, but when it tries to calculate Siwoo's skills and stats, it utterly fails. The gate opens, Siwoo is ready to walk out in order to start the next chapter of his life. Outside the tutorial tower, he's met by the examiner. People in the crowd can't help but murmur and whisper about Siwoo. Then, a big guy joins the scene, clearly not vibing with all the commotion. This big guy is said to be the Team 2 leader, and when the examiner takes note of his presence, he rattles out all the details to him. He mentions that 2 people have just cleared the gate, but what's concerning is that one of them wasn't on the entry list. The big guy scans Siwoo, and the first thing that stands out is how scratchless he is. It doesn't make sense given how scrawny Siwoo looks. There's no way he could have gotten away that easily. His curiosity is piqued, so he shoves the examiner aside and decides to interrogate Siwoo personally. He starts off by asking who the hell Siwoo is and why his name isn't listed in the logs. To this, Siwoo casually replies that he didn't go in through the entrance. But the big guy isn't buying it. He argues that if someone enters through the gate, they have to come out the same way. So how in the world did Siwoo exit without ever entering? Siwoo, however, remains completely nonchalant, refusing to take this oversized jackass seriously. And this attitude is really starting to get under the big guy's skin. Annoyed, he jabs a finger over Siwoo's head and straight up calls him a dimwit. Convinced that Siwoo must have some sort of camouflage skill that let him sneak through undetected, the big guy issues a direct threat. He makes it clear that if Siwoo doesn't spill the truth, he's as good as dead. But Siwoo keeps that same deadpan expression, which only serves to piss off this loudmouth even more, making him more aggressive and abusive with his words. Unfortunately for him, Siwoo doesn't have the patience to listen to some dude yap in his face, especially when said dude's breath smells like literal shit. So without hesitation, he orders this big pile of garbage to shut his damn mouth. Now this shithead is clearly itching for a fight, and Siwoo is more than ready to give him one. To further piss him off, Siwoo throws another jab, roasting him for his horrendous breath. And that does it. The big guy takes the bait, balls up his fat fists, and swings at Siwoo. But Siwoo remains unfazed. Then, the inevitable happens. And it all unfolds right in front of Guildmaster Sejun. Not long after, all the jackasses who dared to mess with Siwoo are laid out on the ground. The entire staff is in a frenzy. The guy they had reported for causing a disturbance not only fought the security team, but also disappeared right after. Guildmaster Sejun immediately orders his staff to pull up the CCTV footage. When they do, the recording shows the big guy and his goons charging at Siwoo. But in the very next second, Siwoo moves so fast that the camera completely fails to capture him. Meanwhile, all 3 of those idiots are knocked out cold. One of the staff members reports that Siwoo actually took down 5 hunters before disappearing. Since no one saw him leave, the only logical explanation the staff can come up with is that he must have used stealth abilities. But Sejun disagrees. As far as he can tell, Siwoo didn't use any gimmicks. The dude just moved insanely fast. Internally, Sejun is 1000% sure that this is Siwoo, his brother. And from what he's seeing, he hasn't changed at all from 10 years ago. He then turns to his staff and issues a direct order. They are to mobilize everyone in the Empire Guild to locate that guy immediately. However, he strictly prohibits them from engaging in any kind of confrontation with this mysterious person. All they need to do is politely introduce themselves and bring him to the office. Sejun wants to meet him personally. As the staff rush to carry out his orders, Sejun still can't wrap his head around where Siwoo has been all this time, only to suddenly show up now. The way he vanished and reappeared is suspicious. There has to be a solid reason behind it. He's sure that if Siwoo had been in Korea all these years, he would have come to Empire Guild multiple times. So now, more than anything, Sejun is curious to learn exactly where he's been. He then shifts his attention to the girl who exited the tutorial tower with Siwoo. But the poor girl quickly waves it off, claiming that she has no connection with him whatsoever, other than the fact that they just happened to exit together. Sejun believes her. In fact, he's genuinely impressed that she cleared the tower faster than expected. This only means one thing: she must have gained some pretty decent skills. Hearing this, the girl grows flustered and modestly admits that she managed to get an A-rank skill. Well, that's no small achievement, and Sejun is already considering recruiting her into the Empire Guild in advance, so he assures her that the contract terms will be tailored to her liking. All he hopes is that she'll be happy to sign up with them. And of course, the girl couldn't be happier about this opportunity. Without hesitation, she accepts it. Just then, an arrogant bastard steps into the scene. And of course, the first thing he does is throw shade at the Empire Guild's reputation. Sejun immediately recognizes the loudmouth and warns him to watch his tongue. This bastard is none other than Hunter Ryu Jiwon, an S-rank hunter and the guild master of Gyumgang Guild. And standing beside him is Choi Sungil, another S-rank hunter who manages White Lion Guild. It looks like these two have also caught wind of the unregistered awakened who cleared the tower. Ryu Jiwon is surprised to see that the entire security team got their asses handed to them by just one person. Judging by the pathetic state of these guards, Ryu is certain that the guy must be packing some serious power. Choi Sungil shares the same sentiments. And this is exactly why he wants to locate the mysterious awakened as soon as possible. If this guy has awakened a high-grade skill, then he's likely to become a top-tier talent in the future. And neither of these guildmasters plans on letting him slip away. They both want him for themselves. Ryu Jiwon decides to turn it into a challenge. Whoever finds that mysterious awakened first gets to claim him. There are no rules about what kind of shady tactics they can use. Whoever gets to him first, keeps him. Choi Sungil is totally on board with this plan. Since they'll be searching for that mysterious awakened on their own, neither of them has time to waste. Without further delay, they set off to find the guy. And whoever finds him first has to inform the others. With that, Ryu Jiwon heads off, but not without throwing a jab, claiming he'll be the one to find the awakened, so there's no need for the others to even bother struggling. But Sejun isn't so sure he's going to let that happen. Anyway, Ryu Jiwon walks away and orders his assistant, Jinsik, to gather all the C and D rankers from Gumsang's Team A and deploy them for the search. But Jinsik seems unsure who exactly they're looking for. In response, Ryu Jiwon casually drops the bomb, it's Sejun's brother. Meanwhile, Siwoo is in his favorite restaurant, munching down on fried chicken. Frey is absolutely boggled. Out of all the things Siwoo could be doing after returning to Earth 100 years later, he chooses to devour some fried birds. After his chicken spree, he starts wandering the streets, which once again piques Frey's curiosity. He can't help but ask where Siwoo's headed. Siwoo doesn't bother explaining. He figures it's obvious. Of course, he's going home. When he finally arrives, stepping into his humble home, nostalgia hits him hard. He remembers rushing inside at dinner time, his mother preparing a meal while his father reads the newspaper. But all those moments are lost in the past. Now his home is nothing more than a rundown shell, empty and abandoned. He still can't remember his parents' faces. They say forgetting is a gift from God, but for him, it was a curse. He spent 100 years in the demon realm, an endless bloodbath on a strange, brutal planet. The dulling of human senses, the stopping of time, the weathering of the self. For what felt like an eternity, the curse of oblivion threatened to erase him. So he desperately clung to his memories, his younger siblings, his disciples, memories that refused to become mere reminiscence. Instead, they turned into obsession, a lingering attachment. But that was okay. Thanks to that, he survived for 100 years. Even Frey takes note of how this place feels like a ghost town, colder than the demon realm itself. Siwoo only came here to reminisce. Now that he's seen everything, it's time to move on. He decides to look for the neighborhood kids he used to hang out with. But first on the list is his brother Sejun he wants to meet. But his plan to reconnect with old friends hits a snag when a gang of thugs, fully armed, surrounds him from all directions. The bastard with red hair seems to be leading the gang. He introduces himself as Byeon Hakam, a C-rank hunter from the Vajra Guild. Siwoo remains calm and completely unbothered by the status of these lowlives. He's not in the mood for a skirmish either. Hakam feels mocked, and reminds him again of his guild's name. But once again, my guy stays nonchalant, because he does not give a single fuck. They keep exchanging jabs, with Siwoo effortlessly countering each one with an even sharper retort. This just gets under Hakam's skin, and his patience continues to wear thin. Fully aggravated, he finally decides to teach Siwoo the lesson he deserves. The next moment, Hakum throws a punch, a devastating blow that sends Siwoo crashing backward, slamming into the wall behind him. Hakam and his lackeys feel thoroughly satisfied, thinking they've finally shut Siwoo up. But my guy is literally the calmest person ever, just lying there like a cool cucumber in a refrigerator. The fools assume he must have fainted from that single blow since he's not getting back up. Then, a system window flashes before Siwoo's eyes, explaining the ability Hakam just used. Apparently, it's a skill called Lightning Flash, a C-grade skill that grants instantaneous acceleration, making your body's speed more than double. You can move way faster, as long as your body can handle the friction. The skill isn't bad at all, so Siwoo casually asks Frey if he wants to eat it. Since this is the first skill Frey is about to consume after returning to Earth, he doesn't mind giving it a try. so my guy simply stands back up on his feet. Then, without warning, he dashes toward Hakum and delivers a devastating slap, so powerful that it literally sends Hakum slamming into the ground hard enough to shatter it. The goons, who were cackling like hyenas just moments ago, now stand in absolute terror. Siwoo then extends his hand, giving Frey the opportunity to devour the skill from this bastard. Soon enough, a dark magic circle forms beneath their feet. Within seconds, the skill extraction is complete. While it feels good to finally chomp down on a skill after so long, Frey can't deny the fact that it tastes way worse than the chicken they had earlier. Meanwhile, Hakum, now with his pride in shambles, calls for his minions to attack Siwoo all at once. Like a bunch of reckless idiots, they charge at him, actually believing they stand a chance. Siwoo just tells Frey to put their newly acquired skill to use. The moment Frey complies, my guy explodes into motion, dashing with godlike speed and taking down every last one of these fools, like they're nothing more than mosquitoes. One of the bastards dashes towards Siwoo, attempting to strike him with a skill. But Siwoo easily renders the bastard's attack futile by smashing his knee into the guy's gut, causing him to cough up blood. The bastard was using a vital point strike, a technique that automatically targets an opponent's weak spots. Since this bastard clearly can't make proper use of the skill, Siwoo decides to borrow it for himself. But before things escalate into everyone's demise, Sejun arrives on the scene. The moment Siwoo looks back at Sejun, he notices the reflection of his brother in his eyes, and the once heated battlefield transforms into a sweet reunion of two brothers. Now, to understand what happened, let's rewind 20 years to when the gates first appeared on Earth. It goes without saying that these gates unleashed chaos and destruction, bringing monsters into the world. This was also when the first generation of awakened individuals emerged, their powers awakening as the gates appeared. There were no police, no laws to handle the situation. It was an era of barbarism, where everyone was inexperienced. In this chaotic world, Siwoo and his little brother Sejun, who lost their parents early, had to survive by any means necessary. Siwoo was the first generation awakened. He dropped out of school to become a hunter and raise his helpless little brother, who was still just an infant at the time. And so, Siwoo, the caring brother that he was, took care of Sejun during those dark times. In the present, Siwoo follows his brother to their new home, where everything looks lavish. Sejun is totally smitten by the place and wonders if his brother took out a loan or earned everything on his own. But Siwoo claims that the money came from skills he learned from his older brother. Since it's a house they're both supposed to live in, there's also a room for Siwoo. Internally, Siwoo can't believe the person in front of him is his same brother who disappeared nearly 10 years ago. Siwoo keeps talking non-stop, feeling happy that he'll be able to raise his little brother again. He can see how much his little brother has worked hard, and that makes him feel incredibly grateful. Seeing Siwoo jabber on so much, Sejun has no doubt this is indeed his real brother. Sejun then brings up how he's been searching so hard for his older brother. He wants to know everything. Where did he go? Why did he go? And why did he choose this time to show up after all this time? Well, Siwoo has a lot to say. 100 years worth of adventures. But that's a story that can only be told if the two of them sit down for a heart-to-heart. So later, we see them sitting together as Siwoo explains everything that happened. In summary, 10 years ago, after Siwoo defeated the fourth Demon Lord, he was transported to another dimension by an artifact the Demon Lord had. In this other world, he met Predator, a being who could extract other people's skills. For 100 years he grew with that ability, seeking out dragons with dimensional magic. Once he defeated the Dragon King and obtained the dimensional orb that Dragon carried, he was finally able to return home. And his friend Predator, who is also known as Frey, crossed over to Earth with him and is now inside his body. This revelation about Frey living inside Siwoo's body creeps the hell out of Sejun. It only gets worse when Siwoo casually reveals that Frey is basically a parasite living in his gut. Siwoo admits that this whole lore dump probably sounds like absolute nonsense, but he promises his younger brother that he's not tweaking anything. Well, it goes without saying that Sejun trusts his brother. Given how much the world has drastically changed over the past 2 decades, he's not even surprised by this story, no matter how absurd it sounds. Right now, he's just glad his brother is back. Now that Siwoo has come clean about himself, he wants his little brother to do the same, fill him in on everything he missed over the past 10 years. He especially wants to know what the hell happened in this country that allowed a guy like Choi Dae-soo to become president. Since Siwoo disappeared, Choi Dae-soo blatantly took credit for the defeat of the fourth Demon King. With the title of the greatest hunter of the first generation and his fabricated reputation, he managed to ascend to the presidency. Now he keeps making policies that work against Empire Guild. But now that Siwoo is back, Sejun is concerned about what that zesty-ass shithead might try to do to his brother. But Siwoo is not worried at all. In fact, he finds it downright laughable that someone as incompetent as Choi Dae-soo managed to fool everyone with his fake SS rank title. Speaking of Choi, Siwoo suddenly remembers the guys who attacked him at their house earlier. The leader of that gang claimed to be from the Gum Gang Guild, so Siwoo wants to know if they're Choi Dae-soo's lackeys. To that, his younger brother responds with a firm no, because the guild Choi Dae-soo runs is called Infinite. There are 7 representative guilds in South Korea, collectively known as the Heptagram. The guild Sejin runs, Empire, is one of them. The others are Infinite, Vajra, White Lion, Fighting Warrior, Azure Flower, and Frozen Soul. Among them, Vajra belongs to a second-generation hunter, Ryu Ji-hwan. Just the name of this bastard is enough to set Sejun's blood boiling. To think that snake is after his senior brother, who just returned home after 10 years. Siwoo then asks his brother about the disciples, the ones who always stood by his side. To that, Sejun explains that they've been living apart for a while, so they haven't connected with each other recently. Xiaolong went back home, and Kang Yohwa is under Choi Dae-soo's control. Well, Siwoo wasn't expecting to hear that, but he's hoping Minjun is still around. But contrary to what he thought, his junior brother drops the grim news that Minjun was killed, which absolutely stuns our boy. He doesn't waste any time and interrogates his brother about who killed him. Sejun explains that Minjun's body disappeared, so they couldn't figure out who the culprit was. The only ones who could kill a hunter are other hunters or unregistered awakened individuals. At that time, HMCS even participated in the investigation, but there was no progress. Siwoo starts feeling dazed as he hears one brutal truth bomb after another. He then asks what's the deal with HMCS, to which his brother explains that HMCS is essentially the Hunter Special Investigation Unit, an international agency that operates at the front lines of hunter-related crime. HMCS has the authority to investigate and arrest all awakened criminals, so they're basically like the hunter police. Siwoo seems quite intrigued by this new faction, so he curiously asks his brother if he has any ties to the agency. Sejun quickly catches on to what his senior brother is implying, and can tell that he wants to join HMCS. If it's an investigation you want to do, then Sejun is willing to lend his own guild's information team, as they don't have to involve themselves with HMCS. But Siwoo has other plans, beyond just gathering information. His brother once again reminds him that those guys handle cases like murder, so going there is not the best option for him right now. He wants his brother to rest first, and once he's fully recovered, he can start thinking about what to do next. This is when Siwoo reminds his junior that he spent 100 years fighting in that other world, so he's done all the shady stuff you can think of. He doesn't believe he lacks any experience in any field. Well, it looks like Sejun has run out of arguments, so he has no choice but to concede to his senior brother's demands. Eventually, he decides to hook his brother up with a guy named Yi Yeji from Frozen Soul, who is a manager in that hunter agency. Siwoo is happy to hear this and is looking forward to it. Sejun takes note of how Siwoo's face is the same, but the atmosphere around him has changed. This makes Sejun curious about what could have happened in that old world to cause him to change so drastically. Meanwhile, our boy is busy digging about HMCS, and this is when he is hit by a twist. The team leader of HMCS's Gangbuk district team is Hwang Jong-gu, a 1.5th generation hunter. And as it turns out, Siwoo knows this guy like the back of his hand. 2 days later, we find ourselves at the HMCS headquarters in Gangbuk district. Inside, a ponytailed man is throwing a tantrum. He seems irritated that once again, someone from higher up has sent a rookie to join his team. And since he's the team leader, it naturally annoys him to have yet another rookie under his command. This guy, as you might have already guessed, is Jong-gu. He reminisces about the old days when battlefields were unpredictable, and strength was all that mattered. Back then, hunters wrote wills before heading into missions, fully aware they might not return. He also recalls how, about 10 years ago, he almost died in a raid. It happened because he was still a rookie, and the wound he suffered was fatal. Had he died, the party would have lost its biggest powerhouse. But it was a single healer with incredible abilities who saved him. And, well, we all know who that healer was. That very healer has just made his grand entrance into the office. Siwoo calls out to his old friend, addressing him by his previous name Byung-gu, and immediately questions why the hell he changed it. To jog Byung-gu's memory, he reminds him that he's the very guy with those insane healing abilities who saved his life back then. It doesn't take long for Byung-gu to recognize him, and when he does, he's absolutely floored. Seeing Hunterman Siwoo standing before him, gracing their office with his presence, is the last thing he expected. Later we see Byung-gu formally introducing Siwoo as a new recruit for the Gangbuk team. While Byung-gu is letting his staff know that they better help Siwoo with anything he needs, his sudden shift in attitude doesn't go unnoticed. One of the female staff members looks visibly disappointed. Just a moment ago, their supposedly great and strict team leader was complaining about a new recruit, and now he's acting like a total pushover. But the guy standing beside her quietly tells her to keep her mouth shut. Judging by the team leader's reaction, it's clear that this newcomer is no ordinary rookie. Byung-gu, meanwhile, turns to the female staff member Sunga, and, in his usual arrogant tone, commands her to follow him to the concrete room for a quick briefing. Seeing the ridiculous amount of protocol their team leader is giving to this guy, the other staff members begin to suspect that maybe this new recruit is a 3-star. Later, we find ourselves in the office, where, as expected, the team leader is absolutely swooning over Siwoo, frantically making coffee and doing everything possible to max out his hospitality. Let's not forget about Kim Sunga, who's here to brief our boy. She's the gangbook team's data manager. Siwoo finally speaks up, requesting records of all hunters who were killed over the past 20 years. He wants her to summarize the data and pass it over to him. His extravagant demand leaves Seonga stunned. 20 years worth of data is an enormous amount, and they'd have to submit a report to the Hunter Association just to get access to it. But the team leader, clearly irritated by her hesitation, tells her to just do what she's told. He further reassures Siwoo that the data manager will handle it quickly and efficiently, so there's nothing to worry about. Seonga then asks if he's only referring to humans, to which he replies that cases officially recognized as murders by HMCS will do. He also wants a list of hunter killers who are still at large. As far as Siwoo is concerned, killing an awakened is nearly impossible unless the attacker is also an awakened of equal strength. And if someone managed to kill a top-tier hunter like Minjun, the culprit is likely a professional. Even if they had already been caught or killed, if they were an awakened, there should be a record of them somewhere. For now, tracking them down takes priority. Sunga has found the information, but is not sure how she should share it. Siwoo simply tells her to just send it to his phone for now. Suddenly, someone calls out to the team leader for a private chat. The guy reports that they've received a request for support from the police. A full-blown war has broken out between gangs, and some of them are awakened. The reason the police do not want to interfere is the fact that one of the gangs involved is Cerberus. This annoys the team leader to no end, while Siwoo has no idea what Cerberus even is. That's when Sunga explains that Cerberus isn't just some typical gang. They're arms traffickers and contract killers. There are even allegations that they're involved in hunter trafficking, which makes them far too dangerous for the regular police to handle. This piques Siwoo's curiosity, especially the part about hunter trafficking, because if that's true, it might be linked to the murder of one of his disciples, whose body was never found. So he tells Byung-gu to take him along. The team leader, annoyed at being called by his old name, reminds Siwoo that it's Jung-gu now. The scene transitions to the battlefield. The Bloodless Reaper gang has just gotten their asses handed to them by Cerberus. Kang-ho, Cerberus's second-in-command, is feeling pretty smug after wiping them out. Beside him is Jikin, the third-in-command, cracking dark jokes about how easily they cut through their enemies. As these bastards revel in their victory, their moment of celebration is suddenly interrupted. A massive explosion rocks the area. The one who just blew out the building wall to make his entrance is, of course, it's our boy, casually walking into the scene. Judging by how full of himself Kang-ho is, who is running his mouth non-stop, Siwoo is certain this guy has killed a few hunters to be riding this high horse, which makes him absolutely thrilled. He wants this bastard to show what he's got. By the way, this shitty website seems to have left out a few panels, because judging by their conversation, we clearly missed the part where they actually fought Siwoo. And right now, they're feeling completely hopeless. Because our boy is on a whole different level. Even though he came alone, he's still making them all run for their lives. After multiple failed attempts to take him down, Kang-ho finally goes all out, activating his skill, Full Body Armor, a B-rank ability that enhances resistance to both magical and physical attacks. As Kang-ho charges forward, his lackeys follow suit, and it doesn't take long for Siwoo to take them all down. Not only does he defeat them, he also makes sure to steal their skills. It looks like the only reason Siwoo came here was to gauge his own strength. He wanted to check how strong awakened criminals have become these days. And since these guys looked like a lost cause, he figured it was best to cut them off early. That's when the team leader finally arrives, reporting that he has cleared out the entire upper floor of the club. But the poor guy is left completely baffled when he notices all the bodies littering the ground. Siwoo, however, proudly clarifies that he left one guy alive, the hotshot among all the garbage, because they needed at least one person alive for interrogation. The team leader, worried, starts ranting about the legal protocols, how they were supposed to capture them alive. But since those bastards attacked first, he ultimately decides to just frame it as self-defense. The real reason he's so spazzed out is that these guys were ruthless enough that there were already warrants for their immediate execution. But to think that Siwoo dealt with them alone is just absolutely insane. Now, he has no doubts about why Siwoo had the reputation of a mad dog. As Siwoo and the team leader talk, we cut to a coward hiding under some furniture. Wasting no time, he calls his senior and reports that the entire Cerberus gang has just been wiped out of existence. The prominent figure on the other end of the call is Gert, an A-rank hunter, the guildmaster of Hong Kong's Red Guild. Gert is on the move, immediately wanting to see his brother. The association members apologize and offer their condolences to him. But this man has come here with a single objective and asks for his brother. He learns that Jikin's body is currently placed for a forensics investigation. Hence, they require his assistance to verify the body so that they can move ahead with the procedures. The redhead hunter likes the way this conversation is going. He had previously learned that the one responsible for taking his brother down shared a connection with the HMCS organization. The agents of the associations have yet to verify such claims. Gert, now irritated, questions if he can leave the premises of his own volition. The agents inform him that it won't be allowed, as he's supposed to stay in his designated spot for the time being. If he fails to comply, the association will act under the international law, forcing him to face deportation penalties. In this conversation, Gert is the one getting slammed. Although he's ticked, he now knows they're allowing him temporary freedom because of what happened to his brother. He tasks his assistant, Ryu Yanpeng, to do his dirty deeds for him. This guy is a B-rank hunter, so he's no joke either. As for Gert, he's steaming with fury, engulfed with the desire to avenge his brother. Let's go over to Siwoo, who's casually chilling. He learns from his brother that Minjun's murder additionally followed up by his house getting robbed. The neat part about the mana in this world is that it can easily be traced and analyzed, revealing the hunter's attributes and rank. Hence, the association can easily investigate the suspects responsible for the crime, but in this case, the culprit is a cunning person who left their tracks covered. Minjun was an archaeologist with important valuables of research, and yet not a single item containing his mana was left behind. At this point, Siwoo amuses the possibility of this being a regular burglar instead of some pre-planned assault. But this remark comes across as ridiculous to Sejun. Siwoo backs up his answer, claiming that the stolen items were valuable according to the report. And that means there's a greater chance of leaving a piece of evidence behind. Siwoo deduces that if the culprit really wanted to cover their mana traces, the best way to do that would be to burn the whole place down, which kind of makes sense. This means that Minjun's murder and the robbery were two different crime incidents. Someone just so happened to take advantage of his demise. Siwoo continues that he's found more cases like this in the past, so it's possible. He wants to get things rolling and crack the case, even though it sounds ridiculous to his brother, who thinks that Minjun's possessions may be a lost cause at this point. Siwoo's a bold one and is willing to crack the case. This unwavering confidence cracks a while after. He's pissed as hell in an alleyway, blaming the number of thieves sneaking around, and yet there weren't any valuable leads. Siwoo runs into a dead end, now raging like a maniac. Bro needs a Snickers bar after this. Anyway, Sherlock Holmes happens to get lucky and sneaks up a conversation between two random hooligans. They're talking about the organization locking down on multiple locations and wiping out entire groups without any warrants or reports. The organization has enough influence and authority to look into any matters related to hunters worldwide. So they don't really give a damn if they're straight up sending criminals to hell for it. The organization is so brutal that the worst thing encountering them isn't a prison cell, but your death ground itself. At the same time, skilled hunters aren't exactly the types to join an organization like the HMCS. They much rather associate themselves with a guild that offers a higher package. Still, whoever's causing so much trouble is a threat to these guys. So they amuse themselves by relocating their warehouse just to be safe. Having heard enough, Sherlock Holmes blows his cover and straight up asks about their warehouse. He freaks the ever-living shit out of them. Rabbit Face over here is scared shitless because he recognizes Siwoo as the man responsible for cleaning the criminals up. The boss immediately calls for his men as an emergency call-out. Siwoo, still not bending a knee, inquires about the location of their warehouse, this time with a threatening tone. The boss is willing to sacrifice his stickman for an assistant just to save his life. Luckily, his men get to the scene right on time, making him feel assured of his chances in this battle. The arrogant boss thinks that just because they've outnumbered the HMCS investigator, they've secured their victory, and that they'll easily finish him off now. But our boy is really happy that they went through the trouble of lining themselves up for him. Because now, he can freely target and practice his new skill. Activating his skill, Siwoo glows a shimmer of golden light, blinding the men completely. Before long, all of the men are defeated with an electrical strike. He stands over the lackey and asks if he's ready to reveal the location of the warehouse now. Seeing this monstrous investigator take out all their men, he helplessly questions if Siwoo is even human. To this, our boy gleefully responds, declaring himself a lunatic. The scene ends there, with the assistants all captured. Siwoo is able to get ahead thanks to Minjun's secret research journal. It is actually well guarded by a security spell, which adds to the explanation as to why no one else can crack it. The lock requires some of the owner's original mana, and Siwoo isn't really looking for the contents of the book, but rather the mana stored inside. He decides to call Byunggu, requesting a car and a cleanup squad to take care of the criminals he just swept. As for him, he's got somewhere to be. In the next scene, we come to learn of a neutral zone, kind of a secret market where strange abilities are exchanged. It's a skill-based market called the Black Skyfall. Here, one lady is playing her cards. I suppose she must be practicing witchcraft or some shit because she senses Siwoo's arrival. This woman is the great shaman, Mumyung, just one of the 5 chiefs of the market. Siwoo explores the sector, remarking that not much has changed from a decade ago. Frey mentions that he's quite the popular guy with everyone turning their attention towards him. Our boy doesn't want to beat up people here since it will end up in trouble for him. Intriguingly, Mumyung comes out to meet him. She had been meaning to talk to him. Inside her premises, she comments on how he hasn't changed a day in a decade. She wonders what business he's been up to. After all, he was gone for a lot of time. Siwoo doesn't want to mansplain the entire century-long shitshow he went through. Instead, he hands her the secret journal to extract the mana. Mumyung enjoys his straightforward demeanor and reminds him of the procedure. Siwoo already knows it well, as he slices a bit of his palm to draw blood. The logic behind it is linked with mana. Returning mana to its original state is near enough impossible. A comparison can be made with curry. A person can remove ingredients like vegetables from the finished curry, but they can't exactly separate the powder, water, and other ingredients, or return them to their original state. But this kind of impossible situation is overturned by the specialty of this woman, who goes by unnamed. She's a mana hacker, using the powers that defy causality itself. It's a superpower only she possesses. This is also why society views people like her with a cunning eye, afraid that these guys might be criminals in disguise. Anyway, she hacks the mana and enjoys having finished the process. Even Frey thinks she's creepy as hell. She doesn't charge him either. Siwoo is in a hurry and leaves without explaining anything to her. The baddie remarks on him as a mysterious guy, while Frey is seriously creeped out by her. Even Siwoo wonders what's causing Frey to be so upset. It was just a ritual involving a small portion of his blood as a contract. Anyway, Siwoo's next destination is the History Research Institute, where Minjun's murder took place. Arriving inside, he finds no trouble walking around because it belongs to the Empire Guild. Coming here, Siwoo's surprised because he sees lingering phantoms of the ones who are still unaccepting of Minjun's death. Siwoo is interested in checking the memories of what happened during the day of the crime. To achieve that effect, he casts Mana Remembrance, allowing him to experience the emotions of the mana wielder via a medium. This causes Siwoo to witness an avatar version of events. Unfortunately, he can't see vividly because the skill doesn't show the target's memories and only fixates on their emotions. Now Siwoo is smart enough to know that Minjun was more than a capable hunter. That means whoever was responsible for taking him out must have been extremely skilled to have outclassed him. Siwoo sees his final moments go down and realizes that the culprit is actually one of the VIPs. Minjun shared a deeper connection to another organization, apart from the research institution. Frey wonders if he's doing all right, since even in the demon realm, all our boy cared about was about his disciples and siblings. A century had passed, and yet, the first thing that crossed his mind after arriving on Earth was to check for them. Now, he's just found one of his disciples wastes away into nothingness. Frey knows that it must be hitting him hard on the inside. Siwoo chooses not to focus on the subject, but his companion can sense that his emotions are spiraling up like crazy. It's just that Siwoo doesn't express those emotions on his face, no matter how much pain he's inside. Siwoo emphasizes that he's alright and that it's natural for him to have a breakdown after a century at least. In a surprising turn of events, Ryu pops up from behind. He's been seriously annoyed with how much he had to tail our boy throughout the day. Ryu orders him to come with him for a visit, but Siwoo confidently points out all 6 of his goons hiding in secret. Ryu is impressed by his observation and decides to offer him a choice between 2 options. The first possibility is that he happily complies and goes with the group without causing trouble. The second one, the hard way, is him getting cut up and dragged all the way to their leader. I bet you guys won't accept what he does next. Our boy willingly puts his hands up in the air, surrendering without causing trouble. Ryu tells his men to tie him up, but that's exactly what Siwoo was looking for. He baited one of the men and sliced them open, revealing his true intentions. Now provoked, the rest of the guys try to jump on him Jujutsu Kaisen style. But Gert finally shows his face, declaring that he'll be the one to clean up his target. Siwoo is unfazed and welcomes him to try. Gert starts off with a confirmation, checking if he's truly the man responsible for putting an end to Jaikin of the Cerberus gang, his brother. To that, Siwoo calmly expresses that he didn't really regard the man's name, nor did he care to ask anyone. All he did was simply clean up a bunch of trash. This heartless remark sets Gert off rails, as he lunges forth to rip him to shreds. The redhead's confidence gets the better of him, but our boy's not worried at all. He casts instant healing, surprising the A-rank hunter who goes on the extreme offensive from the get-go. Even Gert's underlings are shocked that Siwoo was able to block an A-rank hunter's attacks. Siwoo makes sure to keep the rest of these blockheads out of the fight by casting his lightning flash skill. This instantly takes care of the mob characters since he's more interested in facing someone powerful. They can't believe that he's a powerful healer on top of an incredible combat specialist. The guy was able to analyze Gert's movements to perfection and respond accordingly. The A-rank hunter has never met another hunter with this level of precision, and deems our boy a threat unlike any other. This means Gert's only chance of winning is to go full power. But oh boy, bless this guy's delusional heart. Siwoo wants to remind them that if a crime has been committed, no matter who the culprit is, they must pay for their crimes. The awakened criminals just so happen to have a hunter hunting them down. That's Siwoo's role, and yet these arrogant assholes think that they're the ones being wronged, instead of focusing on the damages they have caused to society as a whole. Gert doesn't like Siwoo's explanation, as it implies that he's free to kill any criminal so long as they commit a crime. He strongly defends his fallen brother, who couldn't possibly comprehend the life they shared. Jikan ultimately became a criminal to take care of Gert while he was defenseless. It was his way of ensuring both of their survival. Gert wants to repay the investigator for taking a life carelessly without understanding the value of it. He activates his Wolf Fang skill, arguably one of the strongest weapons at his disposal. Just one look at the red mana is enough to tell Siwoo that he isn't supposed to dodge this attack. He requests Frey for the usage of another skill, even though his companion is exhausted after supplying him with so much resources today. Siwoo promises to take care of the fight on his own after the skill's usage. He casts Neutralization, a hidden class spell that not only identifies the opponent's spell level, but also returns it and cancels out the spell with a magic circle. Gert can't believe what just happened. Not even Ryu can fathom what this seemingly ordinary healer had just done. This guy had just nullified an A-rank hunter's powerful skill. It was unbelievable. At this point, they're the ones being overpowered by one man. Siwoo goes on the offensive and mocks Gert's sentimental approach by making an example of the people who suffered just as much as Jikan, and yet didn't lead a life of crime. He shoves a powerful attack against the guildmaster, sending him flying from the impact. That strike of his just now left a bruise on his arm just blocking the blow. Gert doesn't want his men to intervene. He analyzes the situation, knowing that there's no way for Siwoo to consistently cast a neutralization spell. It's inevitable for him to run out of mana, which is why he plans to force our boy into a battle of endurance. Using the same skill from before, Gert concentrates his energy into a focused point and attempts to strike him down. But Siwoo casually dodges the blow without costing any spells of his own. In response, he smartly follows up with a knee to Gert's face, before blessing him with a rainfall of punches, mocking the criminal for overextending his skill when his body can't even keep up. In a fit of rage, Gert manages to send Siwoo on the back foot. He then orders two of his men to restrain Siwoo while he's defenseless in the air. Ryu is a little irritated about his boss's double-mindedness. First, he didn't want them to intervene, and now he's asking for their help. Anyway, Siwoo is restrained by chains as Gert comes through to deliver one final finishing move to end his life. This time, he wants to make sure there's nothing left of the guy to heal, but this man is too chill. He just doesn't give a damn even with the odds stacked against him. Siwoo congratulates both Gert and Jikan for leading a life of crime, before using the lifesteal spell to absorb the very life essence of his target. This winds up in a gruesome experience for his opponent, whose body eats itself away over time. Even Ryu is freaking horrified to see his leader become a zombie corpse. Fun fact, this is the first skill that our boy awakened. It's the real deal, and he makes it very clear to them that he was never an ordinary healer. This spell involves manipulation of the life force itself, enabling one to use life spirit sorcery. With him down, he turns to Ryu, who is flailing like a fish in the pond. Our boy doesn't care for his yapping or pleading and karate chops the crap out of him. He turns his attention to the camera that each investigator is armed with. Siwoo is hoping that the recording went through in one piece, just to make sure that he could catch the evidence of him fighting in self-defense. Byung-gu and the others actually watched his whole fight go down, and their reactions are priceless. Because this idiot actually pressed the live button instead of the record button, allowing nearly 6,000 viewers to watch his broadcast. This ended up a really sticky situation because it jeopardized the reputation of the organization itself. Turns out that the broadcasting feature has been around for 2 years, used for talent recruitment for the most part, but it ended up being a failed project of sorts. From this footage alone, people have come to realize that someone absurdly strong has joined the organization. But the question is, why? Anyway, the more important issue is that this same person killed someone brutally, a guildmaster. And while the investigator didn't commit any specific crimes, it is still something to take into consideration. Finally, Korea's most powerful man, Choi Dae-soo, joins the discussion. Just a few days later, at the Empire Guild's cafeteria, Siwoo was hogging a meal without giving a damn about the video that was released to the public. Even Frey is upset that he's being disturbed during a meal. He's loving the food here and hopes to gobble down often because of how good it is. Anyway, the live broadcast of Gert's defeat is spiraling like crazy on the internet. Thanks to it being a body cam, Siwoo's face was barely visible in the shit show that went down. If Dae-soo, the president, found out about this, he'd suffer major consequences. Then there's the fact that the president has already tried his very best to erase any traces of our boy's existence for the past 10 years. This means he's a clear threat, and the most viable strategy is to lay low. But being the good brother he is, Siwoo doesn't care about the consequences and simply makes a lighthearted joke about the situation. Anyway, Siwoo is encountered by a bunch of names that he met at the tower. Shinjitsu recently joined their guild, awakening as an A-ranker too, all thanks to Siwoo's efforts. But that makes the guildmaster wonder if there is a seminar for the rest of the hunters to gather. His thoughts are confirmed. 2 more hunters, Chuhaman and Yamato, are introduced, both featuring from different guilds. There's also Taiji from the Imperial Guild, and he's heard a lot of stuff about Siwoo from their guildmaster. Anyway, they're really proud of his achievements for the organization. Siwoo returns the pleasantries, while Haman becomes suspicious of him right off the bat. He knows that Siwoo is responsible for taking down Gert, who was supposed to be his lifelong rival. It almost feels like nonsense. Haman doesn't buy it and considers it all bullshit. In response, the guildmaster shows a serious expression, strongly sharing that he's being rude to someone important in the guild's main premises. Haman chalks it down to the Empire Guild being overly strict instead of correcting himself. Anyway, this turns into an argument, causing the other 2 hunters to draw away from the situation. Haman refuses to back down and doesn't fear the consequences of being reported to the seniors. He talks highly of his accomplishments, but the detail of him being Xiaolong's disciple strikes out to Siwoo the most. Haman is ranting on, causing Siwoo to shut him down, stating that he should just find him some other time on his own if he's that desperate. He also mocks his master for failing to train this guy in proper combat. It's a strong insult that strikes a chord with Haman, who really would have taken forceful methods if they were in a different guild location. Kicking away the chair in frustration, he threatens Siwoo to be careful at night. Bro is out here acting like the boogeyman. Dude needs to stop using high school level threats. Anyway, the guildmaster chooses to forget everything, even assuring his brother that he'll take care of the slimy rat. But Siwoo expresses that it's all good, as this guy is nothing more than the student of his own disciple, so he's okay with him being arrogant. Skipping ahead, we get to see Jianho, the branch director, sharing a talk with the guildmaster Sungil of the White Lion. He wants to issue an apology, beyond the matter of the collaboration. The apology is for the incident caused by one of their members lashing out against the HMCS member. However, the branch director merely refuses such an apology, claiming that someone like him, the leader of a guild, shouldn't apologize for such a behavior. In fact, the branch director has easily figured this guy out, pointing out his intentions of scouting instead of apologizing. Unfortunately, Jianho is unrelenting and refuses to let any guild get their hands on our boy. The guildmaster realizes that he's been figured out, but he finds it strange for someone like Siwoo to offer support in a prison as his current mission. These types of requests are usually handled by larger guilds instead of the organization. Then again, the branch director is optimistic about the future to come and believes they will experience a shift in progress. Sungjil concurs and argues that he would be alright with Hunter Chu Haman, the troublemaker, apologizing to Siwoo on his own. To that, the branch director is fine with it. He thinks it's a personal matter that needs to be addressed by both parties. That marks the end of their meeting. Leaving the building, Sungjil finds himself in a contemplative thought. He doesn't want to just give up on someone of such high talents like that, so he tells his secretary to hit up Haman for a trip, and to also tell him to behave. The secretary asks about the location of their meeting. Sungjil declares Incheon to be the destination. Fast forwarding ahead, everyone now knows that the HMCS organization volunteered for the support request. The only problem being, they have yet to arrive. The chief doesn't get why they're being so annoying, and seems to be fed up with criminals beefing against each other. The current report involves Sherry Volk, a dangerous individual who they underestimated after he got arrested. But slowly after that, he went crazy and lost his senses. Despite mana suppression activated, this guy managed to easily beat the crap out of 5 guys. He maintains a high profile for being a unique criminal, and many agencies have gone through hell just to try and catch him. That man, Sherry Volk, sits in his cell, having received a new instruction. He learns that the organization is already making its move, so if he wants to get out of the cell for good, he's gonna need to cause some trouble inside the prison. As for our protagonist, he's just arrived at the Incheon Awakened prison to fulfill his mission. Haman, on the other hand, is having a temper tantrum after discovering the situation stirred up in the prison. He's seriously annoyed that his guildmaster is obsessed with recruiting and sent him on a stupid mission. Locating a car nearby, Haman rushes to catch up to him the best he can. He's fed up with the mission and wants to ask for overtime pay, just for the inconvenience his guild leader has caused him. Meanwhile, in the transport vehicle, we get to see Siwoo chilling next to the main target. Sherry tries to play provocatively with him and questions if this kid is seriously the new warden. Siwoo bluntly denies such claims. Sherry mocks him for being a special guild member who is overly confident in his skills. The hilarious part is, Siwoo turns to him and goes, "I don't even know who you are," like he's Thanos or something. Sherry is underwhelmed and almost feels offended that this guy's unaware of the situation at hand, or why he's being transported in the first place. Siwoo humiliates him, asking if they decided to transport him because he yaps all the time and never shuts up. At this point, the criminal is at his limit, and explains his lore like he's some evil Sigma male. He's proud of having beaten down 5 criminals, as if to intimidate the guy sitting next to him. Sherry's a little shell-shocked that the guilds managed to send one normal-looking punk after a powerful awakened criminal known for being dangerous and unpredictable. But our boy is just chill-maxing and sips on his coffee, while Sherry tells him that he's utterly fucked. Exactly then, the transport vehicle blows up and gets sent flying. Sherry angrily kicks the door open for having nearly killed him. The old man calculated that he wouldn't just die from a ploy like that, and pokes fun at him for being leashed. That aside, they're curious if he managed to deal with the officer next to him. Sherry confidently claims that he destroyed his temple, which means Siwoo's as good as dead after sipping his last cup of coffee. Sherry's annoyed because his cuffs are taking a while to unlock, but it's only because they're reinforced with mana. Luckily, they managed to break him free. The kid thinks he's grossly exaggerating. Their conversation comes to a full stop as one voice penetrates the scene, demanding them to stay still. This is Haman, and he's surprised they managed to pull off a big move like that. Seeing Siwoo bite the dust at the hands of these low-life criminals, Haman is now even more certain that he was right, that he isn't special, and that his guildmaster is wrong. Nevertheless, he isn't in the mood to let these criminals go. He questions their methods and goals, when suddenly the girl recognizes him as the A-rank hunter Haman from the White Lion Guild. She's surprised to discover they were followed. The old man confirms that no one else is nearby, which means Haman's ready to rumble on his own. He gets into position, once again questioning Sherry's identity. The maniacal criminal claims that there is no use in introduction since he's going to annihilate the hunter anyway. Then he casts the bear-wolf skill, taking over a beastly transformation. Haman is shocked to find himself faced against a heteromorphic awakener. Sherry channels all his inner rage, activating Diamond Rampage as another skill to cover his body in incredible mana. Now, he's on a whole other level. Still, the beast finds itself on the defense when Haman starts striking him with incredible speed. At the same time, the hunter is worried because none of his strikes seem to be decisive enough to land a critical blow. The beast considers these punches nothing more than a bunch of massage services. As for the kid, the old man recommends they join in and end the fight because they can't risk reinforcements to arrive. The girl casts a powerful spell, imbuing mana in her hands. This is called the 10-headed viper, and now Haman has to deal with that too. He evades the snake, ridiculing it. But his words turn against him as the snakes restrain his body using a tracking skill. Now that he's stuck in one place, the beast gets its moment to shine, shoving a heavy blow against Haman's body and sending him down. Sherry looks down on the hunter for believing he was special for being privileged and brought up by a powerful kid. In reality, he sees Haman as not even a threat for the alley fights. Haman reminds them that they're talking shit while literally jumping him in a 3-on-1 situation. But Sherry just kicks him down on that too, stating that their group is just smarter than Haman. Anyway, the old man recommends they don't waste any more precious time, urging the beast to prepare his final attack. He looks down on Haman, questioning if he's got any last words for himself. Haman fully realizes that he's totally outclassed, and may be facing his demise. That is until one man defies the situation and saves him with his arrival. He's a little annoyed that Haman decided to forfeit the fight just like that. Siwoo is disappointed in his disciples' teachings. Siwoo is struggling more with the mechanics of his body cam instead of worrying about a 3-on-1 fight. The beast can't believe that Siwoo survived, not after he confirmed smashing the human's skull before exiting the vehicle. The old man confirms that he should have died, so this is just strange to witness. Haman roars, warning Siwoo and urging him to wait for support to arrive. However, Siwoo's pissed as hell that he was caught in the midst of a clustered shithole. His peaceful coffee was ruined on top of that. So to repay them dearly, he's decided to deem them all criminals, worthy of being eliminated here and now. Min Siwoo, known as the Mad Dog and our Demon Lord Slayer, makes it clear to the 3 buffoons that their game is over. He directs his words at Chu Haman from the White Lion Guild, referring to him as Xiaolong's disciple, while emphasizing that Asura is not merely a skill designed for striking. As our hero gathers his power, the heteromorphic hunter, Grey Wolf of Bestia, lunges at him. However, before the werewolf can land a blow, he is pierced by the Asura skill. Chu Haman, watching closely, struggles to believe his eyes as he recognizes it as the very same skill that his master uses. Siwoo knocks the wolf aside and immediately follows up, mocking him by remarking that draining all the blood is necessary for tender meat. The old buffoon retaliates with a thunderwall strike, only to be startled as their opponent effortlessly evades the attack. Our hero acknowledges the old man's ability to double cast using some cursed tool, remarking that at least his life hasn't been entirely wasted. Meanwhile, his predator, which he calls a parasite, finds the skill unfamiliar and curiously wonders if it can be eaten. Siwoo explains that the skill functions much like an expensive one-time use scroll, requiring mana to be channeled into it for activation. Chu Haman, unable to hold back his curiosity, questions our hero about his identity and how he possesses knowledge of his master's skill. Before he can press further, the old man begins chanting dark spells, catching him off guard with a gravity spell and attempting to use him as bargaining leverage. Siwoo, immediately recognizing the old geezer's ploy, scoffs at the attempt, ridiculing him for stooping to mere threats. The old geezer reiterates his demand, insisting that if Siwoo wants Haman to stay alive, he should walk away. He goes on to add that our hero was merely dragged into this situation and that things can proceed smoothly if he simply leaves without causing trouble. Min Siwoo casually swirls a finger in his ear, dismissing the old man's words by pointing out that he wouldn't be here if he hadn't deliberately accepted such a filthy mission. He further remarks that Haman should have no trouble handling a basic gravity spell like this, even if it doesn't seem that way at the moment. The old geezer questions our hero, pointing out the apparent contradiction and asking whether he and Haman are truly on the same side. Siwoo responds by making it clear that the only ones siding here are them. He then exposes what he already knows, revealing that the old man is a hunter-killer working under the command of a powerful group. This revelation catches the old man off guard, leaving him stunned by how much Siwoo already knows. Without missing a beat, Siwoo continues laying out more facts about him before finally demanding to know who he is working for. The old man makes another attempt to threaten our hero, remarking that even with the knowledge of them being hunter-killers, Siwoo still chose to be here. Fixing him with a deathly stare, Siwoo simply repeats his question. As our hero closes the distance, the old man hastily draws a cursed tool and unleashes a shockwave spell, only to be caught off guard when it is effortlessly nullified. Confused, he wonders if Siwoo used some kind of lightning-based spell to overload the tool. Without hesitation, he jumps backward, trying to widen the gap between them. Predator remarks that the meal now looks even more appetizing. Suddenly, Siwoo's hand begins to glow, revealing that his form has been restored by 40%. Growing even stronger, he taunts the old man, telling him to stop wasting time since, at his age, he can't afford to squander the few days he has left. The old geezer refuses to comply. While acknowledging that Siwoo has uncovered his identity as a hunter-killer, he makes it clear that the organization he serves will remain a mystery. He explains that everyone working for them is bound by an oath of silence. The moment he breaks it and reveals their secrets, he will instantly become a target for immediate execution, ensuring his death either way. Meanwhile, Haman rises to his feet, recovering from the effects of the gravity spell, just as the werewolf regains his senses and coughs up black blood. Without hesitation, our hero briskly moves toward the old man, asking if he is afraid of dying. As he speaks, he begins casting a spell, 3 magic circles appearing around him. Growing anxious, the old man turns to the Grey Wolf of Bestia, urgently demanding that he do something to stop Siwoo. The werewolf snaps at the old geezer, telling him to shut up, before engulfing himself in a purple aura and charging toward our hero, this time vowing to tear him apart. However, before he can cover much distance, he is intercepted by Haman, who remarks that their numbers are finally even. The two exchange heated words, but their argument is abruptly cut short as our hero unleashes his Thousand Winds spell, blasting both the werewolf and the old geezer away. Without wasting a moment, Siwoo dashes toward the old man, seizing him by the neck with an iron grip and demanding to know if he truly understands what death feels like. Tightening his grip around the old geezer's throat, Siwoo demands to know how many times he must drag him to the brink of death before getting an answer. Watching from the side, Haman finds it absurd that our hero keeps pushing these buffoons to the verge of death, only to heal them afterward. The thought crosses his mind that if he were in their position, he would rather die than endure such a fate. He even wonders how it's possible for someone to wield a healing spell so powerful. Siwoo repeats his question, and this time, the wolf pleads with the old man to give in and just answer. Finally giving in to the pressure, the old geezer speaks, revealing that they work for Bestia. As he takes a closer look at our hero, realization dawns on him. Siwoo is none other than one of the 3 legendary figures who vanished long ago, the infamous mad dog, Min Siwoo. Siwoo casually sits down, remarking that since they've finally decided to use their mouths, he'll need more information. Pulling out an image of the serpent-eyed, fang-toothed man responsible for Minjun's death, he demands to know the identity of the killer. As the scene shifts, glimpses of the assassination organization known as Bestia come into view. It was an elite group specializing in hunting down targets, operating under the command of a figure known as Crow. Over time, the organization expanded, growing in power and securing a significant influence in this world. The old geezer, having been among the first generation of hunters, once received an invitation from them and saw no reason to hesitate before quickly accepting their offer. For those recruited by the organization, secrecy was the highest priority. Even back then, when the old geezer was already aging, he was required to take the oath of silence. By signing it, he surrendered control over his own life and death to the assassination organization. As the scene shifts back, the old man reflects on his 15 years with Bestia, recalling how he had always believed he would never betray them. If the situation ever demanded it, he had resolved to bite off his tongue and die rather than break his oath. But after experiencing the agony of death over and over again, his resolve finally shattered, forcing him to finally give in and speak. The old man finally reveals that the person in question is also a member of his organization, known by the nickname Black Mamba. Our hero finds the name rather unpleasant, but quickly moves on to his main question. He asks both of them whether they have ever been involved in the assassination of a hunter named Young Minjun. When neither of them responds, an unsettling force washes over them, gripping them with an overwhelming sensation, as if their very skin is about to be peeled off. Baldy quickly speaks up, insisting that they have no knowledge of the matter. He explains that Bestia's operations are mostly independent, with members rarely needing to coordinate with one another. Before Siwoo can press further, he voluntarily continues, revealing that members typically remain unaware of each other's abilities or locations. However, due to the organization's biannual meeting, they were specifically assigned to retrieve the wolf from prison. He further discloses that the meeting is scheduled to take place in a week, and that their orders were to bring the wolf there. Realizing that their chapter has come to an end, the old geezer bows before Siwoo, pledging to share all the information he knows, including how to infiltrate the meeting. With desperation, he humbly requests that our hero accept them as his subordinates. Chu Haman flares up, calling the offer absurd. Turning to Siwoo, he addresses him as his brother, and asks if he would really fall for such a trick. Resting his head on his hand, our hero calmly questions when exactly Haman became his brother. Haman argues that since Siwoo can use Asura, he is at the very least his senior, perhaps even his mentor's mentor. Dropping the subject of the buffoons entirely, he earnestly requests that Siwoo take him as his disciple instead. Siwoo abruptly cuts Haman off, telling him to keep his mouth shut for a moment. He takes a pause to assess the situation. His only real objective is to gather information on the snake-eyed man, Black Mamba. He realizes that if he lets these two go, their own organization will likely eliminate them. And worse, news about him will reach Bestia, making things far more complicated. Weighing the pros and cons, he ultimately decides to take them both as his subordinates. This decision leaves Haman utterly shocked, while the old geezer, overjoyed, expresses his gratitude. However, before he can shower Siwoo with praise, they are immediately met with a condition. Siwoo lays down his condition, making it clear that to ensure their loyalty, they must take the ultimate oath called the Mana Oath. The weight of this demand quickly sinks in, prompting a complaint from the wolf. However, before he can protest further, the old geezer cuts him off, advising him to comply unless he wishes to experience death a dozen more times. With fear settling in, the two reluctantly gather their mana at their cores. Following our hero's command, they state their names. The old geezer introduces himself as Red Ghost, while the wolf identifies himself as Sherry Volk. As the two complete the contract with our hero, he assures them that as long as they remain loyal, they will be rewarded with protection, and their lives will be safeguarded. Watching Siwoo accept the criminals, Haman flails on the ground like a child, complaining that he was left out while they were taken in. Pouting, he threatens that if he is not made Siwoo's disciple, he will report everything to the association. Siwoo fixes him with a bloody stare before casually telling him he was just teasing. With that, he makes the scroll used for the oath disappear and finally grants Haman's request, accepting him as his disciple. Letting out a sigh of relief, he considers that having extra hands will be useful. This group should be enough to create the kind of scene he has in mind, though he realizes he might need one more person, someone he intends to use to clean up the mess that will follow. Back at the Hunter's police station, a fat, chubby officer is seen scolding the team leader of HMCS, Jonggu, demanding an explanation for how Sherry Volk managed to escape. He stresses how dangerous the man is, and goes on to argue that all the hype surrounding HMCS seems nothing more than a myth. Siwoo, lounging on a sofa, casually responds that Sherry was so fast he could not keep up. Jonggu, clearly disgusted, glares at him and demands that he at least put some effort into his excuse and take the matter seriously. The chubby officer continues his rant, demanding to know why the new transport officer has yet to arrive and calling the entire operation a mess. Having heard enough, Jonggu finally speaks up, explaining that a standard prisoner transport team consists of 4 to 5 officers, while moving a high-threat inmate requires up to 10. Admitting his own fault, he acknowledges that he specifically requested for just one officer to handle the transport. The chubby warden shoots up from his seat in anger, insisting that none of that matters since the prisoner still managed to escape. Jung-gu, waving him off, points out that the new transport officer was actually able to make the escapee confess. He reveals that they learned Sherry Volk had been receiving help from high-ranking officers at the prison in exchange for bribes. Refusing to believe the story, the fat warden dismisses it as an obvious lie. Jung-gu, remaining calm, acknowledges that the warden's skepticism is understandable, but insists that the matter is serious enough to warrant an immediate investigation. Speaking on behalf of HMCS, Jung-gu states that they plan to conduct a thorough investigation into Incheon prison and the escapee. He then requests the warden's cooperation in the matter. As the scene shifts, Jung-gu informs Siwoo that he has initiated the investigation and handled the other matters as requested. Present at the discussion are Hunter Chu-haman and the two buffoons, who are now Siwoo's disciples. Laying out his plan on the table, Siwoo tells the group that the time has come to begin their operation, an infiltration of Bestia's meeting. He reveals that around 8 top-ranked awakened killers will be attending. He then instructs Haman and Jung-gu to pay close attention as the two defectors provide the remaining details. Jung-gu, troubled by the plan, questions how they intend to infiltrate an entire assassination group with such a small team. He asks what their ultimate goal is in pulling off such a dangerous task. Giving him a smirk, Siwoo states that the goal is quite obvious, which is to exterminate every single one of them. At the next Bestia gathering, the leader mockingly jokes about the two who vanished. The group argues, claiming they knew the old man and Sherry Volk were cowards, but never saw their betrayal coming. Hedgehog, the goth girl, furiously swears to kill Volk for breaking her promise to go on a date. Scarmouth demands silence, stating only the boss punishes traitors. But the boss chuckles, amused by how fast 3 members disappeared. His presence instantly quiets the room before he announces a deathmatch, with the winner earning the right to execute the traitors. A heavy silence follows. Black Mamba bluntly tells the boss his jokes aren't amusing. He points out that killing the traitors is easy. The real issue is that their meeting place has been leaked. One member laughs at the idea that anyone would dare attack them, but the alarms blare before the words even settle. The group is stunned, yet the leader seems to enjoy the chaos. It turns out a single intruder is pushing through each of the 5 entrances. 5 members head off to intercept, while one throws a remark at Hedgehog and Black Mamba, wondering why they're still hanging around with the boss. Black Mamba mocks the intruders, dismissing them as trash, while Hedgehog remains lost in her comics. The 3 continue their casual exchange, completely unaware that our boy Jung-gu is creeping through the vents, his every movement laced with unease. Frustration bubbles inside him as he silently laments drawing the most dangerous job of the bunch. Shifting time half an hour earlier, the squad gathers outside the meeting spot, listening as the old man lays out the situation. The 5 entrances never stay the same, constantly shifting like a puzzle. One of them will make it inside first, but in the end, they'll all find their way to the target. Our hero decides they should each take an entrance, cutting off any escape route for the Bestia members. Without hesitation, he instructs Jung-gu to hand out the radios, making it clear that if anyone struggles against their opponent, especially Black Mamba, they should stall and call for backup. Once inside, Jung-gu finds himself at a dead end. His eyes land on a vent overhead, and without a second thought, he jumps straight into it, slipping past every layer of security laid by the organization. But before he knows it, he lands right in the chamber of killers. With 5 members already gone, there's no time to reach out for reinforcements. Determined to cut down their numbers, he pulls a handful of marbles from his pocket and casually lets one drop. The leader scoffs, turning to Hedgehog with a smirk, joking that she must have lost it from their slot machine. As she picks it up, the goth girl playfully comments that she just hit the jackpot. And she's right. The marble erupts like dynamite, sending shockwaves through the room. The leader, unfazed, simply chuckles at her demise. Black Mamba shoots up from his seat, instantly spotting the incoming grenade. With precision, he effortlessly flicks it straight toward the vent, sending it right back. Now that there's no point in hiding, Jung-gu springs from his hiding spot, making a grand entrance. Dripping with sweat, he curses himself being able to take down only one, still shocked at how Black Mamba casually slapped away the grenade like it was nothing. No special technique, just physical prowess. Snake Guy facepalms, fed up with the traitors who sold them out to HMCS. When Jung-gu confirms it, he can't help but shake his head, almost feeling sorry for the fools who betrayed Bestia for such a pathetic deal. Wasting no time, Jung-gu conjures a dazzling burst of light, momentarily blinding his opponent as he hurls daggers concealed within the flash. Across the room, the leader sips her tea, enjoying it like a children's fight. Black Mamba, on the other hand, laughs, already familiar with Jung-gu's tricks. But what leaves Jung-gu stunned is the sight of the Snake Man's body knitting itself back together, raw mana fueling his insane regeneration like it's nothing. Calling playtime over, the snake charges, smashing our boy into the wall with one brutal strike. Mamba sighs, annoyed he hit the vitals too soon, and asks the boss if he can finish the job with a mess. But our boy acts fast, whipping out his radio and reporting before words are cut off by a boot to the chest. Stomping on his chest, the snake guy asks if the backup is the HMCS, Traders, or Wolf Boy. But before Junggu can respond, the answer crashes in from behind. The trio storms the meeting hall all at once, catching everyone off guard as the real fight begins. Without even glancing back, Mamba effortlessly dodges the trio's attack, leaving nothing but a crater where he once stood. Snake Guy eyes the intruders, muttering how disappointed the boss must be, seeing her chosen ones turn out so weak. But something doesn't sit right with him. He notices the trio looks almost untouched, their movements too smooth for people who supposedly fought against Tiger and Grizzly. Their slow attacks are easily avoided, raising doubts in his mind. Haman steps up to meet Mamba in close combat, but before he can land a hit, Mamba snatches him up in a deadly grip. Tossing him away, he grins while asking what a white lion hunter is doing with the HMCS. Watching the trio struggle, Snake Man grows even more suspicious. There's no way a patched-together team formed just a day ago could have wounded Bestia so easily. His eyes narrow as he wonders who's really pulling the strings. Frustrated, Haman barks at Junggu to get up, reminding him they rushed in the second they could. He explains that Siwoo suddenly appeared during their fights and ordered them straight to the hall. With no other choice, the trio keeps stalling, buying time until our hero arrives to finish the job. Folk grits his teeth, confused about how they're supposed to capture a monster like Black Mamba alive. The old man notes that the hall is rigged, pointing out that despite Mamba's incredible speed, teleportation isn't one of his tricks. His unease grows as he watches the leader silently observing the battle. The real danger lies with Crow. Once the leader makes a move, anything could happen. With that in mind, the old man instructs them to focus on capturing Mamba while he keeps an eye on the leader. Meanwhile, Snake Guy grows irritated, dodging Haman and Wolf Boy's relentless attacks. His frustration spikes as everyone keeps ignoring his question. Baldy's voice suddenly booms through the hall, declaring that no one is leaving until our hero arrives. Red chains of mana shoot up from the ground, latching onto Haman and even Bestia's leader, Crow. The boss chuckles, calling the old man's efforts a waste of time. But the old man remains unfazed, fully confident in his binding spell. A dangerous aura radiates from Crow as he questions just how powerful their mastermind must be to betray him so boldly. Without hesitation, he calls for Hedgehog. From the shadows, she strikes with her spiky hair, diving straight at the old man. Folk and Junggu race to defend him, stunned that she's still alive. Growing tired of the delay, Mamba shatters the binding skill and activates his skill, saying they are gonna be quite busy cleaning up the mess. Mamba's scales turn white, mutating into a white-scaled lizard man as he promises to end their lives quickly. Junggu and Haman, knowing no attack will pierce the thick scales, prepare to run for their lives. Junggu ponders Mamba's transformation, though it appears similar to Wolf Boy's. The mana is denser than diamond. With the rigged meeting hall, only he can hold out against the recipe for disaster. He judges it impossible to aid Volk and the old man against Hedgehog. Helping in the only way the weak guy can, he throws a dagger into Mamba's arm. Before the lizardman can take it out, it grows green, indicating a corrosion skill. Junggu continues his barrage of daggers before being blown away. Haman warns him of the flying boulder headed his way, but Mamba quickly reminds him not to look away in a fight. The monster teleports behind Junggu, warning that innocent hunters have gravely misunderstood the situation. With a firm chokehold, the lizard man points out that skill ranks and mana numbers mean nothing in a dirty fight. He declares it a mistake to challenge them on their turf. Meanwhile, our hedgehog is busy exacting revenge on the lying Volk. The meeting hall is equipped with various self-destructing and buffing mechanisms for the Bestia members. It's no wonder they call it the Snake's Den. Anyone who enters is never leaving alive. Mamba tells Junggu to give up his frivolous effort, nearly knocking our boy out, when he suddenly senses an ominous aura. Crow immediately leaps backward as our hero flies by his buddy Junggu and slams the ugly lizard into the den's wall. Our Demon Lord Slayer grins like a demon, having finally found Minjun's killer. Meanwhile, Hedgehog has already taken down the wolf guy and now shifts her attention to Siwoo, curiosity sparking as she seeks to uncover his identity. However, before she can take any action, a magic circle suddenly activates, striking her down in an instant. Observing the unexpected turn of events, Crow, the leader of the group, finds herself intrigued, wondering how Siwoo managed to dismantle and repurpose every magic circle embedded within the space. Unseen and unheard by anyone but Siwoo, Predator Frey takes the opportunity to boast, claiming that such a feat was only achievable due to his power. Crow observes the scene with amusement, remarking on how effortlessly Siwoo has reduced a billion-costing facility to nothing more than scrap. Meanwhile, Black Mamba recovers from his injury and swiftly casts a spell, only for Siwoo to evade it by leaping backward. Recognizing the situation, Black Mamba begins to piece things together, questioning whether Siwoo is the one responsible for eliminating the old geezer and the wolf guy, as well as orchestrating the entire operation. Siwoo still holds on to the anger that surged through him upon learning of his subordinate's death, directing his accusation at Black Mamba as the true culprit. From a distance, Crow, observing the situation, questions what Mamba could have done to provoke such fury. Black Mamba, unfazed, claims that he merely follows the orders and requests assigned to him, insisting that he bears no guilt beyond that. He continues, voicing his curiosity, attempting to confirm his suspicion by asking whether Siwoo has come seeking revenge. Puzzled, he wonders how Siwoo managed to uncover his identity, considering he never leaves behind any trace. Siwoo forms a thunder circle in his hand, making it clear that he intends to take his revenge, though there is something he needs to uncover first. Meanwhile, Crow finds herself backed into a corner by the others. Raising her hands, she directs her curiosity toward her former crew members, questioning what could have possibly happened to turn them into Siwoo's obedient followers so suddenly. As this unfolds, the thunder circle Siwoo has been casting finally reaches completion, revealing that he has successfully reversed buff-enhancing magic into traps instead. Black Mamba, struggling against the suppressing trap, tries to piece together Siwoo's abilities, wondering whether he is a tracking-type magic user or a melee hunter. Yet, none of the possibilities he considers seem to fully align with what he has witnessed. Before he can dwell on it further, Siwoo unleashes another skill, slamming him against the wall once more and forcing him to revert to his hunter form. Bleeding from his mouth, Black Mamba swears that he has never seen Siwoo before. Despite taking pride in knowing everything about high-ranking hunters, he finds himself at a complete loss regarding his opponent's identity. Without wasting any time, he casts another magic circle and demands to know what business Siwoo has with him. Before Black Mamba can finish his enchantment, Siwoo appears above him in an instant, driving him to the ground with his foot. Making it clear that he is the one who will be asking the questions, not the other way around, he presses down harder, forcing his dominance over the situation. Without giving him a chance to recover, Siwoo slams him down again, issuing a sharp warning that a single wrong move will cost him his life, leaving no room for defiance. Black Mamba, now completely overpowered, visibly gives up and pleads for Siwoo to stop, his will to resist breaking. Seeing that Black Mamba is finally willing to talk, Siwoo wastes no time and demands to know who ordered the assassination of Young Min-jun. As sweat drips down his face, Black Mamba's mind races, questioning how Siwoo even learned about the murder and whether he has some connection to the victim. Instead of answering, he resorts to a cheap trick, pretending to comply just long enough to lower Siwoo's guard. Seizing the moment, he suddenly spits a venomous poison from his mouth, aiming to catch his opponent off guard. Believing he has taken down Siwoo, Black Mamba boasts that a true assassin never reveals his client. However, his confidence shatters the moment Siwoo instantly recovers, healing himself without effort. Panic overtakes him as he struggles to understand if Siwoo is actually a healer. Desperate, he turns to Crow for help, only to find her completely surrounded by Siwoo's disciples, leaving him with no way out. With no other options, Black Mamba finally gives in, beginning to reveal the client's name, Panday. But before he can finish, Crow swiftly eliminates him. Watching this unfold, Siwoo contemplates whether the name he was about to say was Pandemonium. Hearing this, Crow finally acknowledges that she has realized Siwoo's true identity, none other than the legendary first-generation hunter, Mad Dog, who mysteriously disappeared a decade ago. Siwoo, now turning his attention to Crow, questions whether she is also affiliated with Pandemonium. However, she firmly denies the accusation, asserting that her organization operates strictly as an assassin's guild and does not engage in personal requests. Siwoo fixes Crow with a death glare, making it clear that speaking the truth is the only option if she knows what's best for her. Crow, maintaining her stance, swears that she has no reason to lie, pointing out that Siwoo already has information on her. With a snap of her fingers, she signals Hedgehog to get up and assist in their escape. In an instant, the two vanish into the sky, preparing to flee. Before leaving, Crow questions whether Siwoo intends to pursue her, but he dismisses the idea, stating that he has already obtained the lead he was after, leaving him with no further reason to chase them. As the portal materializes, Crow bids farewell to Siwoo, hinting that their paths may cross again soon before vanishing into thin air. Jonggu, frustrated, complains to Siwoo about letting them escape, only to be met with a calm explanation. Siwoo informs him that had he pursued them, Crow would have activated the floor's self-destruction sequence, something they were in no condition to evade. He then instructs Jonggu to handle the cleanup, stating that they have achieved enough for the day. As the scene shifts, Siwoo is in his room, searching for more information on Pandemonium. His mind drifts back 20 years to the moment when the first gate appeared, unleashing all manner of things upon the world. Mana surged into existence, magic stones surfaced, and countless rare resources were discovered. Demons too emerged through the gate, initially blending into society unnoticed. However, they did not stop there. Not only did they seize control over the gates, but they also regarded humans as an inferior species. Before long, they successfully established their headquarters, constructing the Demon King's castle at the heart of the continent, securing their grip over all the resources pouring from the gates. Amidst this chaos, a faction of humans emerged, swearing loyalty to the Demon King. They became known as Pandemonium, serving as the bridge between demons and humans. However, fortune favored humanity as the first-generation hunters rose to oppose them. These hunters swiftly mastered mana manipulation, standing as the last line of defense against Pandemonium's growing influence. What followed was the Great War between humans and demons, a brutal conflict that shook the world. In the end, humanity triumphed, pushing the demons back. Siwoo recalls that it has now been 10 years since he single-handedly defeated the 4 demon lords, only to be cast into a dimensional rift, ultimately finding himself trapped in the demon world. He questions why the name Pandemonium is resurfacing after all this time, especially since the group was dismantled long before the war even began. His thoughts turn to his predator, seeking answers about why the demons in the other world seemed so different. Frey acknowledges the difference and shares his own analysis, revealing that numerous races exist across the dimensions. He notes that the demons in the other world were particularly ruthless, having gone so far as to exploit the dragon species, forcing them into servitude. Frey continues, arguing that no matter where demons go, they behave like gangsters. Before becoming a part of our hero, he had no memories, only a lingering sense that something had been stolen from him by the demons. Having spent over 100 years at Siwoo's side, analyzing demons, he is now certain that they were the ones who tampered with his memory. Siwoo places a hand on his head, reflecting that instead of solely focusing on killing them, he should have paid more attention to uncovering their true nature. Siwoo notices that the mana patterns of demons differ from those of humans, and compared to 10 years ago, they have become far more adept at blending in. Frey suggests that simply eliminating them would solve everything, but Siwoo admits that he wishes it were that simple. Just then, his younger brother enters, questioning why he suddenly asked him to rent an office, suspecting that he might have gotten himself into trouble. Siwoo, remaining casual, responds that it's nothing major. He's just trying to track down Minjun's traces. Sejun points out that from what he has gathered, Siwoo recently wiped out an entire assassination organization, and questions whether his request for an office was meant for planning that mission. Taking a seat on the sofa, Sejun scolds him, reminding him that he has repeatedly urged him to keep a low profile, warning that it wouldn't be ideal if the president found out. Siwoo, letting out a sigh, reassures his brother not to worry, explaining that Junggu has already erased all records of his involvement. Siwoo also mentions that he is planning to visit President Choi Dae-soo soon. However, his brother finds this decision unwise. Frustrated by Siwoo's actions, Guildmaster Sejun argues that he has yet to regain his full mana strength. While he won't force him to stop, he insists that he shouldn't rush into things. He expresses concern that Siwoo might end up in trouble again, reminding him that the world has changed significantly over the past 10 years. Siwoo appears before his brother, scratching his head like a monkey, telling him not to overwork his little brain. Sejun lets it go, reminding Siwoo to keep his promise and stay safe, as he can't afford to lose him again. Changing the subject, he asks if Siwoo remembers Hunter Shin-Jisu, mentioning that her awakening skill turned out to be quite impressive. He suggests that his brother should look into her. Siwoo, however, shifts the topic, saying that he's hungry and inviting Sejun to join him for dinner. Frey chimes in as well, complaining that he's starving since Siwoo's mana isn't enough to satisfy him. In response, Siwoo mockingly blames his predator for his own hunger. As Sejun leaves, he calls Junggu, complaining about why he revealed everything to his brother. However, the big guy scolds him instead, reminding him of the chaos it caused trying to cover up his actions in front of HMCS. Every media outlet and agency is swarming the organization with interviews after the takedown of the assassins. He further informs Siwoo that, thanks to keeping his name out of it, the branch manager is now closely monitoring them. Siwoo argues that it's a good thing since it means he's getting results, but Junggu, clearly frustrated, complains that the real issue is figuring out how to justify the fact that he single-handedly took down such high-ranked A+ hunters. Our hero counters that Junggu should have involved the White Lion Guild since Haman was present, but Junggu still insists that Siwoo stepping forward would help ease the burden on them. Siwoo then hangs up, dismissing the matter by saying his meal is waiting. Heading to the kitchen, he settles onto the sofa, murmuring to himself about how much he enjoys his job. Turning his head back, he casually asks his brother if there's any recent news regarding the demons. Sejun explains that ever since Siwoo eliminated the 4 demon lords, the demons had no choice but to propose a peace treaty and establish an institute in the polar continent to study the mana that emerged on Earth. He adds that some nations have even begun collaborating with them on this research, and it has become rare to see demons outside the polar continent. Over time, people have largely dismissed the chaos they once caused, reducing it to nothing more than an urban legend. Frey finds it rather absurd and questions when demons ever became peace-loving beings. Siwoo then shifts the conversation to Crow, mentioning that while her mana pattern closely resembled that of a demon, there was something off about it. This leads him to suspect that she might be a demon-human hybrid. Given that demons first appeared on Earth 20 years ago, he is convinced that such a possibility exists. What initially began as a mission to avenge Minjun's death has now transformed into something far more complex, leaving him with the feeling that this pursuit might continue for a long time. Back at Siwoo's place, he begins training his 2 new subordinates to control their mana by helping them discover their mana core. Confused, Hamin questions how this could be useful when skills only awaken in high adrenaline battles. Annoyed, Siwoo smacks Wolfboy, reminding him that they were the ones who asked for training in the first place. He sighs at their naive belief that simply blasting out mana like a gym workout is the best way to use it. The simple-minded Volk, on the other hand, argues that there's no need for control if they can just take down their enemies in a single hit. Siwoo points out that the easy tutorial tower has spoiled them, making them overly reliant on brute force. He explains that sensing one's mana core requires precise control, something his new disciples clearly lack. Using an analogy, he describes how every person has an internal space where mana gathers, often referred to as the dantian or core. Each individual awakens with a unique trait, releasing mana in a way that manifests as skills. The more refined their control over the power flowing from their core, the stronger their abilities become. That's why training is essential, not just to expand their mana reserves, but also to enhance the effectiveness of their skills. Siwoo, acting like an old man, mocks the 3 for only using their power for around 20 years. He tells them to stop complaining and just follow his instructions if they truly want to get stronger. As if that isn't enough, he warns them about the grueling training the Bestia traders will undergo until they've properly atoned for their crimes. Suddenly, a visibly distressed Junggu arrives, demanding to know why Siwoo didn't answer his phone. The Mad Dog casually responds that he doesn't pick up calls 24/7. Ignoring the remark, Junggu stresses that he needs to meet the branch director at HQ immediately. At the HMCS office, Siwoo eyes Junggu suspiciously, asking if he snitched on him to his superiors. Junggu adamantly denies it, but before he can say more, they're approached by 2 of his sassy colleagues. The Gangnam team leader and his lackey start teasing Junggu about his sudden rise to fame. Seeing Changwon back from his vacation, Junggu clicks his tongue and tells him to quit slacking off and actually do his job instead of bothering his coworkers. Ignoring the bickering, the Gangnam team leader turns his attention to Siwoo, but our hero couldn't be less interested. Instead, he casually picks his ear, completely unfazed. Junggu steps in, sighing that jet lag must be making the Gangnam turd spout nonsense. Changwon's aide fires back with a nerdy comeback, and Changwon starts rambling about how everyone is just jealous that his team is making waves internationally, while the Gangbuk team is stuck dealing with petty thugs. Siwoo, busy scrolling through his phone, barely acknowledges the conversation, until the nerd pointedly reminds him to show some respect and introduce himself to his seniors. Without missing a beat, our hero flips him off and tells him to clear the precious space his leader is hogging with those fake, roided-up muscles. To top it off, he glances at the aide's glasses and smirks, asking if Four Eyes is blind even with his edgy frames. The nerd twitches in anger and immediately requests permission to discipline the newbie. But Junggu, ever the voice of reason, sighs and asks if Four Eyes has any emotional intelligence at all. Changwon, not one to let things slide, scoffs and asks if Junggu is deaf since he clearly didn't hear Siwoo trash-talking his seniors. Loyal as ever, Junggu blatantly denies it, while our hero grins and quips that maybe the orc has too much fat clogging his ears. That's the last straw. With his rage overflowing, Changwon cracks his knuckles and declares in front of the entire office that it's time to teach these punks a lesson and show everyone who's really in charge. Just then, the boss shows up. Branch Director Jianho materializes out of nowhere, jump-scaring the living daylights out of the Gangnam team. Completely ignoring them, he turns to our duo with a warm smile, greeting them and apologizing for the delay caused by the dimwits. Without wasting time, Jianho personally escorts his esteemed guests away, even going as far as asking what kind of tea they prefer. Fuming, Changwon tries to complain, but before he can even get a word out, the boss cuts him off with a casual reminder of his utter failure in the Japan mission. That shuts the Gangnam turds up instantly. Burning with jealousy, the 2 are left speechless, their minds racing as they try to figure out just what kind of insane connections this rookie must have. Inside the director's office, Junggu remains on edge while Siwoo, unfazed, gets straight to the point about the reason behind his summons. Amused by his blunt approach, the director responds with a laugh, shifting the conversation toward the Incheon prison escort. He points out that, following the success of the Bestia raid, responsibility for the escort case has now fallen under their branch's jurisdiction. With a broad smile, he wastes no time in addressing the real matter at hand, directly questioning what exactly transpired with the escaped prisoner. His skepticism is evident, making it clear that he finds it hard to believe someone capable of taking down the infamous Gert would genuinely lose to a mere wolf boy. Observing Siwoo's reluctance to provide an answer, he promptly instructs Junggu to step out, ensuring their discussion remains private. The director reiterates that he considers himself a reasonable man. While Junggu has an impressive track record, the reality remains that he lacks the capability to single-handedly raid and dismantle an assassin's guild like Bestia. Drawing from his experience, he pieces together that the escaped prisoner likely provided them with a lead to the organization. He points out that officially reporting this information would be advantageous for everyone involved. However, simply disregarding a wanted hunter isn't an option, especially not just because a rookie insists on it. Realizing that his line of questioning is leading nowhere, the director shifts tactics, revealing that he has invited a mutual acquaintance, one who is quite eager to have a conversation with Siwoo. His curiosity finally piqued. Siwoo turns his head to face none other than one of his fellow first-generation legendary hunters, the guildmaster of fighting warrior, Du Kangho. At Kangho's residence, the two enjoy a peaceful conversation over a cup of tea, just like the good old times. Uncle Kangho recalls how shocked he was when he first heard the news of our hero's death. Curious, Predator asks who the suspicious old guy acting so familiar with him is. Our hero also notes that the man seems to have aged quite a bit. Laughing at the odd comment, Kangho chuckles and points out that Siwoo is the one who seems frozen in time. The uncle, with a touch of jealousy, mentions how Siwoo hasn't gained a single wrinkle over the past 10 years. He then asks what happened, since even his disciples went through hell yet couldn't track him down. Acting nonchalant, our boy replies they'll need another drink since his story isn't a short one. Hearing his 100-year-long tale, the uncle finds it impressive how much he went through. Our Demon Kingslayer shares his worry that mysterious dimensional magic activated at the very end of the fourth boss's fight. Clearing up the confusion, Kangho reveals that the fourth Demon King is still alive, leaving Siwoo stunned. My guy slams the table, seething with rage that the humans signed the peace treaty despite knowing this. Kangho does his best to calm him, explaining that only the remnants of the Demon Lord's forces remain. After the Demon Slayer ended his reign, the demons on Earth claimed they were merely following orders from their leader in the war against humans. Siwoo grits his teeth, realizing they had used him as a scapegoat. But Kangho calls it a necessary evil, given that human resources had been stretched thin since the first gate appeared. When the demons offered the peacefire, they even promised to share their knowledge on how to seal the gates. It was an irrefutable offer, so the humans exchanged the Demon King's remnants and a lab in the Arctic, where they could safely open a gate. For the people who were unaware of magic in the gates, it was undoubtedly the best choice for progress. As a result, top rankers like Choi Dae-soo from every country took the deal. Since then, the demons have stayed under the radar. He mentions that the first-gen hunters were initially very suspicious, but after Siwoo's disappearance, they scattered. Once everything calmed down, the interest in demons had waned. Kangho has had his doubts about the demons ever since, but what's even more intriguing is the disappearance of the mad dog. After Siwoo vanished, Choi Dae-soo went to great lengths to erase all traces of him, leaving no one beyond the second-gen hunters even aware of our Demon Slayer. What's even stranger is that the uncle couldn't recognize him today, despite having fought alongside him multiple times. Hearing how unnatural the memory loss is, our hero suggests that maybe Dae-soo had the demons' help. Kangho agrees, commenting that Siwoo has long been a pain in both parties' sides. Our hero then wonders aloud what the demons would have to gain from helping such a prideful jerk like Dae-soo erase his existence. Kangho reminds him that the demons have become harder to challenge since they've even helped humans improve with mana. Siwoo counters, pointing out that these are the same trash who started a war because they believed humans were an inferior race. With that, Kangho suggests that Siwoo meets with his disciples next to get a clearer picture. The problem is that his disciples have scattered across the world. But the uncle responds that although kids are like that, Yohwa is still in Korea. She's now an S rank and the leader of the Azure Flower Guild. Still, Uncle Kangho is disturbed to share that the same redhead who always clung to him like glue now works under Dae-soo. Our hero brushes it off, saying everyone has their reasons. After sharing a good laugh over the pricey yet nasty-tasting liquor, the uncle mentions his little brother. Siwoo replies that his little bro loves the old man and thanks the samurai uncle for raising Sejun like his own son. Just then, A spy snaps a photo of the two from outside and sends it to his guildmaster. He confirms that he's caught the HMCS privately meeting with the great Kangho. The guildmaster, Yowa, thanks him and confirms that Siwoo is alive, just as she had expected. Her suspicions had grown after seeing the Empire Guild's unusually chaotic movements. Breathing a sigh of relief, the lady goes weak in the knees, bursting into tears at the sight of the master she had terribly missed. After she started working under Dae-soo, Sejun lost trust in her. But the lady never stopped searching, even when everyone else had given up. Yowa stares at the master, who hasn't changed a bit, and prepares to meet him immediately. Yet her hope comes crashing down when she hears someone call her name. Dae-soo asks why she's in such a rush. The redhead lady replies that it's nothing special, trying to steady her trembling arm. The creepy man grips her shoulder, pointing out that the cold-hearted woman who wasn't fazed by her mother's death can't possibly be so moved over something trivial. He guesses that he's heard of a certain infamous Min Siwoo's return, and her frozen expression gives it away. The eye-patch uncle sighs, watching her rush off to her master like a loyal pet. Patting her head, he clicks his tongue, muttering that she hasn't matured at all. He makes it clear he doesn't plan on letting her go easily, even if she's his last blood relative. She slaps his hand away, reminding him that she never pledged loyalty to him in the first place, and he knows it. He admits that he only let her linger around his guild because she grew into a powerful hunter. Yowa is furious hearing him refer to her as a mere tool. The redhead snaps at her supposed uncle, who abandoned her when she needed him most. Only Siwoo had been there to save her from despair. Dae-soo shatters her confidence by reminding her that she's a criminal. Given how our hero has been viciously hunting down criminals, once he finds out about her past, her so-called happy reunion won't be as pleasant as she hopes. The creepy uncle advises her not to forget her dirty roots and urges her to wake up from her delusion. The trembling lady is left completely demoralized, standing there utterly speechless. Meanwhile, at the guild, a pair of rookies meet our hero, who has promised to train them firsthand. Jisoo curiously asks if the huffing bear mask and the bald old man are also coming along. Our hero introduces the two seniors, while the wolf boy is suffocating in the bear mask, struggling to hide his identity. The juniors are immediately intimidated by the old man's menacing presence, yet the baldy casually remarks that he'll be relying on the energetic young ones. He offers her words of encouragement to Jisoo as though she's his own granddaughter. Siwoo reminds the troublemaker wolf boy that he's still on probation, warning him not to bully the juniors unless he wants to experience death again. With that, the team sets off toward the F-rank gate owned by the Empire Guild. Jisoo admits she's feeling quite nervous, so our hero tells her to think of the giant portal as just another door. The other recruit, equally hesitant, mentions a rumor that sometimes the gates swallow hunters if they close while the hunters are still inside. The old man reassures them, stating that humans now know exactly how to open and close the gates. He continues, explaining that gates have become a business due to the precious resources monsters inside yield. Cowards won't be rewarded without taking some risks. Once inside the gate, the team finds themselves in a lush forest. The recruits start complaining, leaving our hero wondering if all the kids are this clueless, even after graduating from the Hunter Academy. Bear Boy explains that after completing their studies, recruits are ranked after finishing the tutorial tower and only gain practical experience once they join a guild. Siwoo expresses his concern, calling the F-rank training little more than a system for mass-producing weaklings. He urges them to demonstrate their skills before they start facing monsters. Sent by Sejun, the pretend recruit feels humiliated, being bossed around by a stranger alongside a girl who can't even use her power properly. Finally charging up her skill, Jisoo is knocked back by the force of her own attack, landing on her butt. Hearing her rampant apologies, our trainer tells her to stop with the apologies and hands her a whip. The recruit looks confused, so he explains that it will help her better control her unique skill. Jisoo tries again, charging up her spell with the whip in hand. Meanwhile, the pretend recruit reports the gang of goblins ambushing them. Sitting at a safe distance, our trainer instructs him to handle it on his own. The guy curses at Siwoo's smug comment that they wouldn't learn anything if he beat the goblins for them. Watching the newbie in action, the baldy is impressed by his flashy tracking skill. However, it's clear that Byunguk's control is abysmal, and he's burning through his mana at an alarming rate. Meanwhile, the recruit is shocked at how fighting a swarm of goblins alone feels like pure punishment for someone at his level. In a panic, he shouts at Jisoo, asking how much longer she'll take. Completely drained of mana, he collapses, and a goblin almost lands a fatal blow. Just in time, Jisoo unleashes her skill, forcing the goblin to submit. With a single command, she makes it back off and copies her movements. Wolf Boy and Baldy are impressed, witnessing a rare domination skill in action. Even Frey, unable to contain his excitement, begs for permission to feast on such a rare sight. However, the mad dog remains unimpressed, remarking that it's quite useless if she can only control a single enemy. Realizing she's in deep trouble, The newbie starts desperately jolting her unconscious partner, while the goblins drool, eyeing the easy prey before them. Siwoo's assistance has helped her unlock a sense of how to use her techniques better, and she's grateful for that. Our boy doesn't even care that she looks like shit, as this is the only kind of mentoring he is willing to offer. Her hair disheveled, she cracks up a smile, stating that she was the foolish one for being overconfident, believing that hunters and awakeners in general were special, and that their value increased in society with their ranks. But now, she was able to catch a hint of the true reality. Skills were tools, and not something a person could define their worth with. That's why training is important. Siwoo agrees, and thinks it's good enough if she's learned something. He's done for today and wants to head back home. The old man suddenly notes that there's a huge crowd spiraling up and wonders if these guys are from another guild. The girl explains that there is negotiation going on between the Azure Flower Guild and another group. A new gate has been discovered after all, so these people are just being dispatched here. Hearing the guild's name, Siwoo draws away for a second. From among the crowd, the people are curious to ask the guild leader about the appearance of the unique gate, as well as the pile of dead bodies of hunters that were discovered inside. The strange thing about this case is that these hunters weren't even torn apart by monsters. Their bodies seemed in one piece on the outside, but their organs had taken all the damage. It made Yowa contemplate what could become the catalyst for such a strange turn of events. Her train of thought is disrupted as a voice draws her over from her shoulder. It's Siwoo, who greets her with confidence, reminding her that her teacher is back. Seeing him here, she shows a different side to herself, mentioning his return. Siwoo wants to speak to her, but she's too busy and has things to deal with. Yowa escapes the situation, while Frey is out here flaming our boy for being the first dude to get rejected at the speed of light. The old man finds her rude for dismissing him like that too. Siwoo confirms that to be the case, but it's not that she was rude just now. In fact, he saw her in a fragile state, as if she was crying, and he doesn't know why. Let's explore their backstory a bit. Siwoo came to see her while she was hiding and crying her eyes out. He doesn't even get what's causing her to be upset. The teacher emphasized that he'll always find her out even if she hides. Turns out, the girl was jealous as hell that Sejun was trained better than her because of his connection to his brother, while she was just a nobody he picked up. She was once starving on the streets, so he collected her just like how Batman collects a new Robin every week. Anyway, Yowa doesn't get why Siwoo has been so nice and considerate of her despite having zero reason to do so. He teases her intently, stating that it's just a choice he made. He'd already been born into a tragic world, and felt that it was right to have a loving family of his own. He even gives Yowa the privilege of being called his real sister all the same. To this, the redhead flushes and continues to put up a petty fight. Siwoo is a little annoyed and wonders if he should make her cry even harder in their next training session. Yowa doesn't want him to adjust the difficulty of the training even further, since he already puts her through the worst every day. Those scenes race inside her head. She recalls never wanting to be the best disciple, but someone who could become his weapon, someone he could rely on. And that's how she ended up catching feelings for him. Tough luck. Yowa could not escape the bubble of being the child of a disgusting criminal. She enjoyed her privileges as a child and thinks that it does not earn her any excuse. That's why Yowa is prepared to do anything to fight for her teacher, for the person who helped restart her life. Yowa pops a surprise visit to meet Sejun, who calls her his sister out of habit and then addresses her properly. The redhead wants him to spare the pleasantries for a moment because she's come here to talk. Let's hop over to a different scene, where Kang-ho is expressing his reasons of distrust to an acquaintance. When the gates first appeared, they had been fighting against demons. It was a barbaric era where powerful awakened warriors did not know what to make of their powers and broke every law. And now, he's seriously annoyed that this guy ended up making deals with the demons themselves. Eyepatch over here quickly realizes that Kang-ho's already encountered Siwoo, which is why he's so alert and suspicious of him right now. He thinks Siwoo's the one who has had his senses tamed, failing his judgment. Of course, this all seems like bullshit coming from President Eyepatch over here. He thinks the same of Kang-ho, claiming that he and the rest have some kind of delusion about him. This man outlines that he doesn't care about the safety or protection of humanity. The three reverences matter nothing to him. The bastard reveals his true nature. He's just a madman who is drunk on power, hoping to achieve complete supremacy. He wants to test and expire the very limits of mana and where that could lead humanity. His goal is to face an endless amount of strong opponents to help evolve humanity to greater heights. His authority is just a tool that helps him get there. The deals he made were merely because their interests aligned in one place. In the global domain, he confirms that each world leader had already bargained with the demons. On the exterior, it seems like they're forming these deals out of the country's safety, but they have their own agendas. With the current trajectory, humanity will tremendously evolve in the upcoming decade. He mocks Kang-ho for questioning his decisions when it only helped strengthen humanity's side. Kang-ho returns to the important question at hand. He wants to hear it from the man himself. to see if he truly made a deal with the demons and became the one responsible for sending Siwoo away. The president plays it soft, expressing that he's got nothing to hide, and if Siwoo has returned, then he's just gotten himself another chance to destroy him. Daisu is all confident in his shit talk session until the man himself arrives to meet with him, stating that he's got a couple of things to ask too.